After that, those are aspirations. What can you fund out of your revenue? That is the real budget. So the things that I was seeing some semantics about absorption. That word called absorption, you need to actually juxtapose it from absorption to not funded. Those nice words about absorption and absorption, it basically means more than 95% that those programs were actually not funded by the close of the financial year. Those words around absorption, the problem is that the responsibility is left with the accounting officer, the responsibility to explain. But the overarching ministry, which is the National Treasury, then is left with no responsibility. If you sit here and you're talking about an absorption, for example, in the Department of Basic Education, like the classrooms I saw in laboratories, if there is a CFO or the PS for basic education, they seem like the ones carrying the burden, that you didn't absorb the money yet it was budgeted. That is not the truth. The truth is that that program or those projects were actually not funded. So that I have seen part of managing our country's economics is communicating things as they are, so that people's expectations are aligned to what can be delivered and are aligned to what is possible. There are just a few other things I want to highlight. One is the budget. The budget that we know in terms of the expenditure side. If you could have followed the presentation here, BPS level 4.3 trillion. Let me use the one that has been implemented, because, and you forgive me for this because I've been there. The real budget is the one that has been implemented, not the one you want not the aspirations of the next financial year. And that comes in handy at the close of the financial year, when you realize there is a lot of gap in terms of revenue. Now let me actually use the one that has partly been implemented for this current financial year. And let me use the one before revision, before the second supplementary. You're talking about a budget of 3.8 trillion. I want you to see what it is that we budget for. Kenya has two very stagnant and solid polars in budget making. One is the side of discretionary, the other one is non-discretionary. As the institutions of the state continue to solidify, what usually happens is that the role of a leader gets diminished by the day. The role of budget making organs gets diminished the more institutions of governance continue to solidify. Let me try to explain this. In a country like Kenya that is doing fairly well in terms of having enough institutions around governance, that continues to decimate the role of decision making in resource allocation. Why? Majority of the huge proportion of our budget is actually non-discretionary. There is nothing you can do about it. So you are sitting there as the leader, championing or leading budget making, but up to what point can you exercise your mind? This is the reason. 3.8 trillion is there as your budget. You read it, is an astronomical figure, and it projects even growth in expenditure, etc. All those good semantics we put in the budget making process. But out of 3.8 trillion, you remove 1.25 to 1.3 trillion as something called consolidated fund service. I'm not using BPS, I'm using this current financial year. Out of that 1.25 trillion, over 1.08 trillion is money you are going to pay interest rates for debts. 1.008 trillion. It will be more next financial year. Now, there is nothing you can do about that. There is also nothing you can do about funding constitutional bodies and commissions, and there is nothing you can do about pension. All those falls under CFS. So you budget 1.2 thereabout trillion, there is nothing you can do about it. Then come to salaries of civil servants. Salaries of civil servants in Kenya is in the range of 600 to 700 in the few years around here now, 600 to 700 billion Kenya shillings. There is also nothing you can do about that. There is a constitutional requirement of funding counties to a tune of 380 billion that time, this financial year, actually without carryovers. Once you put carryovers, it is over 400 billion. There is nothing you can do about that also. So what happens then? We end up with a kitty we call development budget. Of around 700 billion, which over the years, as I said when I was starting, is just an aspiration. It is not a budget, it is an aspiration. Because you budget 700 billion, by the close of the financial year, you are less in revenue collection by 300 billion. You can't cut payment of interest rate. Neither can you cut any part of CFS. You can't cut salaries. There is a part you can't cut, for example, FPE. Part of recurrent, for example, is free basic education. There is nothing you can do about that. So what usually happens? When Treasury receives money, revenue, they fund all those things, other things as priority. The last one to be funded is development. So in that development then, it is the one that takes the hit and the cut when there is a downsize or a downgrade in revenue collection. So the room to exercise the authority of budget making process continues to be decimated. For me, in one way, it's a good thing, especially in regards to what this money goes into doing. But of course, as I wind up, I'll talk more about also the revenue side. Nachukua a few points here and there. I'm talking broadly, so please don't get lost in the mix. I'm just trying to be broad and general. This financial year, as you do the alternative budget, this and next, you'll likely see a lot of enhancement in GJ law, because maybe 1 year after today, or even months after today, we are likely to see a lot of activities around IEBC. It is a huge budget expectation there, because we are talking about around 60 billion Kenya shillings that must go into the instruments of democracy, into making sure you have a credible election in the year of election, which is not very far from today. Now, why have I picked just IEBC? Even with the challenges that there are in terms of funding the current budget, the budget we are likely to give IEBC during the electioneering period is actually more than the entire budget we give to the road sector in Kenya when you talk about development funded by GOK. So I want you to start exercising your mind around your expectations then. I have talked about non-discretionaries you can't do anything about. There is now another non-discretionary called IEBC that will take approximately 60 billion. So what is that doing? It continues to shrink what you may call political development. As an MP, as a politician, you may talk about all the other things. Before you talk about roads and water, you have not yet said anything about development. Because the people's expectation in terms of Kenya is around those areas. Let me say something about debt. If there is one threat that we face as a country today, it is debt. And I don't think we are taking the seriousness of this matter the way it should. And I also don't think those who are responsible are communicating enough about the problem we have about debt. When you are in a hole, there are many ways you can get out of that hole. You can get a ladder. You can get somebody to pull you from it. There are many ways. One of the ways you cannot get out of the hole is to continue digging that hole. You know, I just want you to reflect on the figures that we are projected here. You tell me whether Kenya continues to get out of the hole or to dig the hole further. And I think in terms of debt management, we have a lot of work to do as a country. And the government also has a lot of work to do around debt management. If you track debt from year 2003, especially during President Kibaki's time, he took up the country when the debt was around 600 billion shillings. By the time he left, it was around 1.8 trillion. But I want you to see the other side of it. When President Kibaki came in, revenue collection in Kenya was 200 billion. Can you just imagine how small a country we were? We were collecting only 200 billion in ordinary revenue. When President Kibaki left, that figure was around or close to 1 trillion Kenya shillings. So if you look at the debt growth, the debt grew from 600 to 1.8 trillion. That's around maybe 200% over and above. But look at the revenue collection. The revenue collection, with the growth was like double that of debt accumulation. And I want to say, because figures don't lie, you realize that the accolades given to President Mwai Kibaki, he actually deserves more. Because now we have comparisons to do. You know, when it was just President Kibaki's reign, there was no comparative analysis to do. Now he left in 2013. We can now do comparative analysis from then. And clearly you can see Kenya has never had a more prudent president than President Mwai Kibaki.
Leo nimekuja tu kukagua huu mradi, hata kama sio mradi peke yake, kuna miradi mingine, lakini tungetaka huu mradi ukamilike haraka kwa sababu ni mmoja wa miradi ambaye itakuza uchumi wa sehemu hii. Kama nilivyosema, mradi huu utagharimu bilioni 1.3 na madhumuni yake, kwanza kabisa itakuwa kituo cha kufunza wataalamu wa mambo ya uchumi wa samaki na mambo ya uvuvi na masuala yote ya uchumi wa ziwa. Na hii itakuwa sehemu maalum ama specialized institution ya train wale ambao watatusaidia katika kukuza uchumi wetu hapa Kisumu, uchumi wa Nyanza, uchumi wa Kenya, sehemu zote ambazo zinategemea sehemu hii ama ziwa hii la Victoria. Tunatengeneza ama tunasaidiana na beach management units katika sehemu hii. Already serikali imetoa shilingi milioni 124 kwa vikundi mbalimbali vya wavuvi ili watafute vifaa vizuri vya kuvua samaki, na mwaka huu tunataka tuongeze pesa hiyo. Tunataka kununua mashua za kisasa ambazo zinaweza enda kule kwa ziwa ama kwa bahari kwa siku 5, siku 4, siku 10, ili wavuvi wetu waweze kufika kila sehemu ya ziwa hii na wawe salama. Kwa hivyo kwa jumla serikali inaangazia sana wananchi ambao wanatoa vitega uchumi vyao katika mambo ya uvuvi na mambo ya uchumi samawati. Hapa katikati katika hii miradi ambayo tunafanya, kubuni nafasi za kazi. Kituo hiki kuna vijana wataandikwa hapa, they will get some quality jobs, long term jobs. Hapo katikati, wakati huu wa ujenzi, kuna watu wamepata kazi hapa kama plumbers, kama artisans, kama masons, kama electricians, kama engineers, architects, quantity surveyors, watu mafundi, watu ya mkono, everybody is getting a job here. And even in the landing sites, there are people who will get short-term jobs there. And when the landing sites and this institution is complete also, there are people who will get long-term jobs. Sehemu hii itakuwa sehemu ya kukuza mbegu maalum ya samaki. Aina mbalimbali ya samaki ambayo imekuzwa kisayansi, kitaalamu, ili tuitumie kuongeza samaki wetu katika ziwa la Victoria, na pia wananchi wengi ambao wanaishi sehemu hii ambao hawako karibu na ziwa waweze kupewa hizo mbegu wakakuze samaki katika mashamba yao. Kwa hivyo hiyo ndio madhumuni mkuu ya mradi huu. Huu sio mradi peke yake ambao tuko nao sehemu hii. Vilevile tunatengeneza sehemu za kutengenezea samaki. Already tumekamilisha project 3. Moja Siaya, moja Busia na moja hapa Kisumu. Lakini tuna zingine 9 ambazo tunaanza. Zile tunaita fish landing sites. Fish landing site ni sehemu za wavuvi kuleta samaki zao. Zimewekwa vyumba vya barafu vya kuzuia kuoza kwa samaki. Kuna soko ya samaki pale mahali wavuvi watatengenezea biashara yao mahali pasafi. Kwa hivyo hizo landing site 9 na zile ambazo zitaanza mwezi ujao zitatangazwa, mtaziona kwa gazeti, na vilevile kuna zile 3 ambazo already tumeshikamiliza. Kule Siaya nafikiri ni Luanda Kotieno, yes. Na kule Busia na pia mahali kunaitwa Mukoba pale Busia, na kuna ingine moja Migori inaitwa Sori. Hizo zimekamilisha na tumeshazipeana kwa wananchi kutumia. We are building 9 more landing sites. 1 more in Migori, 2 in Homa Bay, 2 here in Kisumu, 3 in Siaya, and I think 1 in Busia. Is that correct? Yes. Kwa hivyo we are building 9 others. We are advertising them 9 months. Next week, sorry. Each of those landing sites is costing the government of Kenya between 150 and 160 million per landing site. Na kwa hivyo ni investment kubwa ya kukuza uchumi wa sehemu hii.
Ndenda congratulate andu mangisugure kenja ndeyaba ati mwarutuwira mwandu makwirutira wira na nikyo mugana Kirinyaga ikoragwo etaritwe imwe ya county ire indongu muno tondo inyuwe mukiruta wira wanyu akawa kena mbia ni muproduceraga gatembia no murutaga mwathi kumanjani kuna mbia na gutena mbia no mugwikata no mukurima na rire twafivwa ni uboro wa market kuria ruraya na rire uboro wa cartel swa thenga tugakora ati mbeca ni ciacoka mucii ala twathomithagwo ni kawa ni twambie kuthomithia ciana citu na nginya na kawa na manjani kwa unde na kumwira ndenda kumuve vinya nguga maundu vende ciona muthiko wa me nywe rimwe ni guka tukagera mikuru na ndwe na miambato no tari ugumuronire kawa goka wega thina mbere gukarimira thina mbere tondu ona kwira gwatire ona waruta wira wa gutethia na mbo amutethetia andu uko gutethia nginya Ngai kana atia na kawa gaka tondu karatethia nginya bururi uyu ni ndwa kwa foreign exchange thina mbere na kurwirira kirage kyanyu na tuthina mbere na kurugama na farmers makawa kana atia na mama njani.
Bei ya kahawa imetangazwa pale Faragwe Cooperative Society, na kuna factory moja inaitwa Gashami. Factory ya Gashami nimeona kwa kila kilo moja ya kahawa ambayo ilipelekwa hivi majuzi watalipwa shilingi 145, 145 shillings. Hiyo ni Gashami. Hapa sijui yani mko kwa cooperative gani na kama yenu imefika, lakini nasema ya kule sababu nimeiona. Ile factory kati ya zile 12 ambazo ziko katika hiyo sehemu, ile iko na pesa kidogo sana, ni shilingi 118. Sasa kuna kitu Bwana Shoba alituambia hapa wakati akiwa hapa, ya kwamba kwanza tukapima pressure pale, sababu shule zimefungwa, si ni kweli? Na kwamba hivi karibuni kwa majuma mawili matatu yajayo tutapeleka watoto shule, nitarudisha. Sasa kwa yule ambaye ako na hiyo kahawa, ambaye atalipwa ile pesa yake, si ako na matumaini. Sasa mwingine ni mkulima, ye hana chochote kule, hajapanda hiyo kahawa, hajapanda hiyo mandizi, hajapanda chochote, hana ng'ombe, hana kuku, na mchanga tuko nao. Ombi letu ni kwamba tuingie mashambani mwetu, wakati tukilalamikia mambo mengine yote, tuwe kuna kitu tunaangalia tukiwa pale mashinani. Hiyo pesa hata kama haijafika, nasikia inaanza kufika leo, itakuwa imeingia kwa accounts. Lakini kuna kitu tumeambiwa pale Kianyaga na wazee walikuwa wanauliza kwani vilabu leo hazijafunguliwa. Sasa tukaulizana ndio wafanye nini? Sasa tukaambiwa nauliza sababu pesa imeingia kwa nini? Kwa society. Na wanajua ni nyingi. Kama ulikuwa na kilo kama 1000, si tunaongea shilingi 1145. Sasa watu wengine wameanza kupangia hiyo pesa vile wataipeleka kwa vilabu. Badala tufikirie vile tutaendeleza kile kilimo, pengine unue ng'ombe ama mbuzi kama huko nazo na kuku, na uweke kidogo ambayo utapeleka nayo watoto shule zikifunguliwa. Hiyo mawazo tuache. Hiyo mawazo ya kwamba sababu tumeipata tutaipeleka kwa anasa za dunia, hiyo tuache. Tuitumie hiyo pesa kwa yale mambo ambayo yatatusaidia. Najua mwingine ananiuliza kwani ulikuwa kwa tukilima? Tulilima na yeye tunataka kwenda kujipaguza jasho. Si kwa hiyo jia ya kule vilabuni. Kama ni lazima tukunywe maziwa na maji. It's very healthy. Si ni kweli? Ya kwamba kama ni tukunywe maziwa na supu. Hiyo ni moja.
Na kenjuge kuringana na maundu uria maroka makawa thiku ici niturona twateta ta kuroka undu ungi ona mugarurikire, na arafu tugacoka tukona nginya itheiuri irarutirwa riti, tukona riu maundu magiuka kuringana na uria tureciria meciria-ini mitu ni undu wa thikurora na migurire ya ndawa na indu iria cingi na fertilizer igakorwa iguru, na murimi nake ndarecirua na gikiro kiiguru. Bati riu kuma mundu agwitwa Gacagua anegena uboro wa kawora ge kuthina brokers gwicieko nai, niturona maundu ta marathi magiuka wega nundu ciiraniru ira twirire riu ni ironeka ikibinga, na twirie ni guku thiku kinya nginya ciringi 200, no ukaroria riu tikaturiukite o bau tondu riu kuna andu nginya me iguru ya 144 150 nona no 50 ndigaru. Na nituna kirigiriro gia gukorwa ati nitugukwana na reti ya kugaga ati kawa apa kiro turiguragirwa na mbeca fulani, na nibo riu turona tuthiite tondu riu ona ithio tuna kabinda ga gukinya gukora tukiaria na tukigwa turoma makenu nginya ngoro, na kungethio gu maundu no moke wega. Na riu tondu bandu aba na thirikari ni roneka tika nyingeru boy koroneka thirikari nayo ingi ukaingire bau bangi turona ta kungikinya 200 na tukore tugikena na tugacokia ngatho. Ogu ithue ni turona kuringana na reti uria yumite ri turomaririkane tondu no twanegenete, no riu ni turona ta kuroka tukininagirwe negena riu na tugakorwa turona gikeno. Ogu riu ndengiuga kuringana na bau riu barokirwa ni tugukora tugikira kio gia kurima na twebinyaniririe muno o uria twabota tukorwo ni tukuona ni ithue tugikinya ta baria bangi bakinyaga, ni undu wana mabururi aria mangi marutagirwa reti nene ta Brazil riu ndona ni undu wa wira uria marutaga. Bati riu oni ithue tutigiukite ogu na ni tugumaobateki tondu wira ni turakiruta munene wa kawa kuringana na uria riu kare quality iria irendeka ni turabota kurima. Ogu no njugire anyway tumakenu na tuthiera riu tuthiete tukiambatagirwa mbica nundu riu no turona maundu no maroka. Sasa ati ni irakorwo ikirora riu ndu riu andu ara na motwigirire bare kuna riu kuringana uria arimi na mo mararia ni marabota kuthikiriria arimi na mathikiriria arimi kiriro kiao ni maragerio na muria mathi micemania ya gwitwa na guku ugu kwa guko ndira cia kugura ikoragwa ri tamarathikiririo ura murimi na guko aruga ri mundu akathina ciugo iria akiritwe ni arimi make ura mangienda turona ta kuroka wega ona akorwo riu tikwa tungikiuga ati tukiuge riu nimo mareka ati nduyona ndora riu mundu ni arekiri ni roka na direct ni undu kwa kuringana na thoko ria yukite thiete yagirire ugu riu nturona ta tugukinya bandu onite tugate account cia ndora ugagikagirirwa mbeca ciaku direct we ukagaruranagiria maundu acio mangi akora ni bangi igakugaruraniria mbeca ciaku koguo utegutinda ukithina
riu na riu abari urona ubakiritwo o kawa tigugatagirana na erewe gataragira na wili baro we nona tariu ni ndirenda
mari karo mari rakinete mundu na gikonya esto kagere mbere ya kamera sikitie mbele tani sasa hivi wewe kile sana yesu ana nakadani hapo hapana hiyo na leo sita ya kidena ya toa ando ni siben kidena ya toa
Saile ni nyere ni but we have some few from other signs of Mount Kenya but their concentration I know very much is that's why we are so they are actually young them to come and get their food. So whatever you are giving them it's available. It's available. The flavors. Then after a couple minutes you see so that it can absorb all the flavors. Then after that you skim it and then start testing. Now to analyze.
Reti nĩ njega twĩ makenu nĩ tũkũhota gwĩka maũndũ mothe gũtungata kaũa kila kitu na ciana nĩ cikũhota gũthoma
nĩ maũndũ matikoretwo memega ona banini nondu wa mbere tuthiĩte gũtuĩka twabewa ciringi 74 n'inya na kũrĩ bingo twabetwo 60 mangi makabewa 50 mbeci tweka mathabu na kũringana na fertilizer tũgwetwo inputs na njĩra nguhĩ ndawa fertilizer na ndũĩ ũrĩa tũragũra tũkona mũrĩmi arutani agakorwo ndengia mbeca ngĩbotania gũtwara thukuru nũndũ wa gĩthomo maũndũ mwaka ũyũ kũringana na mabira ngoretwo ngĩrĩma kawa niĩ ndĩrona mwaka ũyũ kwĩna improvement njega mũno ndĩngarĩte na mĩaka yothe na mĩbĩtũku nondũ rĩu nĩ tũrabotire gũkinyĩra ciringi 118 na mang'oto reri igũrũ na mboni magana tũme kĩndũ tũkona management ĩngĩthiĩra bau mũrĩmi no atuĩka wa gũtetheka niĩ ngĩona kabinda karĩa tũgũkorwo tũkĩgĩa thirikari njerũ ĩno ya Kenya Kwanza rĩ ĩkoretwo ĩna mũtongoria witũ Ruto mena gacagua rĩ niĩ nĩ nguona maũndũ aya makoretwo makĩrĩra arĩmi ũhoro wa arĩmi megũtetheka kũbĩtũkĩra ũrĩmi wa kawa nĩndĩrona ciugo imwe gacagua akoretwo akĩaria nĩikoretwo ikĩruta wĩra thĩinĩ wa societies nondũ akwa nĩ ta mũhoro ũmwe mwena wĩgiĩ Statehouse na tondũ cikoretwo igĩtũbinyĩrĩria nĩ tũrona ta makoretwo Statehouse ikoretwo ite thĩinĩ wa wendiani wa kawa nondũ bingo Statehouse cikoretwo igwatĩrĩre kawa wendiani wa kawa
wa mbere tũbana ta arĩmi nĩ tũkenete mũno nĩ rĩti ĩrĩa ĩkoretwo ĩkiuma tondũ kuma magarũrũku arĩa makoretwo mekĩkĩte thĩinĩ wa sector ya kawa mũrĩmi wa kawa ni athiite ambatire gikiro ki mubuko ona ki production tondu rira mubuko wikara wega mundu ni abota kugura ndawa ukagura fertilizer ugatungata kawa wega na ugakora production iro iguru koguo ni tukenete na tungiuga thirikari ithio na mbere na kurora murimi wa kawa tondu no tukene kiro ya kawa rire irakinya 200 na nigetha tukabota twaruta output iria mundu akoretwo abuthire at least ugatigirwa kanyamu onawe ungikenera au bangi njuge tubana tarimi bando thirikari ni kwingirira ni yagirirwe guturora muno cooperative society through andu aria tumaga mabana ta auditors tondu kindu kimwe gitumite cooperative igwe muno ni kwaga transparency and accountability ugakorwa ringi arimi atongoria aria mathurite bando no marabana ta kama marungumia arimi no gakoraga riti rimwe ona kwani tuona takai iguru bando baria irite boyagirirwo gukorwo tondu kurona maundu mangi mei marekwa rungu matarabotithia murimi gukinyirwo ni kiria kiagirire
katuge mabinda mana rira kana risisi aritie no kithii kia mukengeria mwaka ucio urathirire season irathirire ya kahua turabetu na ciringi 74 na mwaka uyu wa 24-25 nitwagia ciringi 118 koguo ucio ni mwongerereka wa ciringi 44 na tubana tari kuria amukengeria nituiguite riu ati thithina itu riu ni yambirie kuribura kwagirire katuga mwaka muthiru mukengeria nitumirite barabara na nitwarakarite muno ni maribiura mokite ni undu kawa gitu ni koretwo turimite kawa gakurite njega na price ira twabero last year ndiari price ya tukenirio ona banini na nitwabinyiririe management igerie guthuthuria niki kiratuma maribi mamukengeria makoro magithie thi compare ndina ithe ira cingi kuona ati kithii giki gitu ni strategic kuorite itu ya kawa ni koragwa njega na riu ona niturona taru kithii kira gitu kiaba neighboring kirari na ciringi 125 a difference ya ciringi 7 tu koguo ni kuonania at least now mwenane wa kithii gitu murimire witu na ni urarorwa katuge mwaka uyu unlike season ira irathirire ithuĩ tũbana ta arĩmi ma mũkengeria nĩ tũrigwo nĩ tũkenete mũno nĩ ũndũ wa marĩbi na rĩti ũrĩa tũrarutĩrwo nĩ society na nĩ ngwenda gũcokia ngatho nĩ ũndũ wa arĩmi ma mũkengeria gũkorwo mathiĩte na mbere na kũrĩma kawa quality njega na nĩ tũrona rĩu maciaro ma ũrĩmi ũcio. Oni makwa nĩ atĩ nindĩ kwenda kwĩ bandũ thirikari ĩgwatĩte itemi mwena-inĩ wa rĩti ici tondu toria tuwi andu aria mothe marutaga wira wa biashara mathogora mathiaga kuringana na market forces koguo guti bandu thirikari ya Kenya irokirira bandu ba marketing ba kwendia kawa gitu koguo ni market forces iria ikoretwo ikuo na thirikari iria agiriro gustiro thanda yuge ati ni tubete mbeca ici tubete tondu ni market forces kawa karakora mbei njega koguo murimi ara benefit na mbei ira ikuo no ni ndi kuona guoko kwa thirikari bandu bau riu maundu makawa kuringana no kuthiete na structures ira ikuo ni kuonania riu direction ira tuthiete kawa ni gathiete wega na tura hope ona season ino turathie turoga kuingerera 2025-2026 ona yo ni tukuona maribi mega ma kahua tondu kira kibata thiini wa kahua ni quality njega na nigetha tubote kuona aguri ya kawa gitu na mbei ira yagirire
riu ni turona ati maundu ugumambiriria no makorwe me maundu mega no bau mbere turari tukwite ngoro ona tukuga tutikurima kawa tondu aria mathina mingi bire ona twarima gatiratutethia no riu ni turona ugu kathiete kangithie ugu na mbere no tukorwe tukithi na mbere na tukarime wega riu bau gakinyitie na riu ona turutirwo ugu ni turenda tugie tuongererwe ikoro ire iguru na ni tukenete na bambere arimi ni megukena muno mayongererwa mbeca icu nigetha mabote gukorwa makigayania igakoragwa ni iramegana nikegana nginya mabatara mao aria marenda na magaira magakorwo ni maratigirwa kanyamu ga gwitethia ga kuthomithia ciana ga kuruta mawira mao kugura mabataraisa kugura ndawa kugura indo ciothe ona makona kindu gya kuria matikabute